Exposed, how an incredible CEO's life-changing ACT saved a poor girl from deadly pursuers. Julia's heart raced as she darted through the narrow alleyways of Chicago, her small frame weaving expertly between piles of trash and bricks. She could hear the gang members' laughter echoing in the distance, a chilling reminder of the peril that lurked just steps behind her. Her mother, Rosa, had always warned her about these streets. They were unforgiving and filled with shadows that could snatch away dreams just as quickly as they were born. Despite the weight of desperation on her tiny shoulders, Julia refused to be scared. The sound of her mother's gentle voice lingered in her mind, "We are fighters, Mija. We will rise no matter what." Rosa worked day and night, juggling a cleaning job and 2 shifts at a local diner to keep their cramped apartment illuminated with hope. Even though everything they possessed could fit into a single suitcase, Julia felt rich when she was with her mom, but today was different. With her mother working late, Julia's heart raced with anxiety. She wandered deeper into their neighborhood, searching for gang members who taunted her with sly grins. She was being watched, and the realization sent a shiver down her spine. Meanwhile, Kevin, the once little boy from this very neighborhood, now a successful CEO, learned of Julia's plight during an emergency community meeting. The stories of children like Julia felt like arrows piercing his heart. He had soared to heights of success, driven by his father's determination and the community that had once lifted him out of darkness. But those old wounds were still fresh. He could never forget how he almost fell prey to the lure of gangs like those preying on Julia. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Kevin listened to Julia's story, his heart tightened. He envisioned her bravery and resilience a mirror of himself. Fueled by an urge to help, he planned a rally to protect Julia, reigniting the community spirit that once defined their neighborhood. But not everyone welcomed his efforts. The gang leaders sensed this newfound energy, and they grew furious at the idea of someone standing against them. Julia's life became a risky pawn in a game that threatened to explode. The night air was thick with tension as Kevin walked the same streets he had once fled from. Memories surged. Young boys like himself had a choice: gang life or hope. As he scanned the streets, spotting familiar cracks in sidewalks and alleyways, he felt that old fear gnawing at him. Julia was at risk. The moment of truth loomed. Would he stand up, risking everything for an innocent girl? Would he confront the gang face to face, standing tall for what was right? The stakes soared ever higher, putting both Julia and Kevin on a collision course with destiny. As the community began to gather, whispers filled the air, and the crowd held its breath. Julia stood at the edge, peering into the dark unknown, uncertain if the world outside could ever change. Would something spark a transformation? Would hope rise above despair? The tension crackled like electric air as everyone waited for Kevin to make a choice that could alter the course of Julia's life forever. Kevin inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of every gaze on him. The crowd was a reflection of all the dreams lost to the streets, families desperate for change, children yearning for a future. He stepped forward, hands trembling slightly, yet determination burned bright in his chest. "Everyone!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the whispers. We've suffered enough. We've sat quietly while fear ruled our streets. It's time to take back our community. A murmur rippled through the crowd, many nodding in agreement, hearts igniting as hope beckoned. Julia watched, her breath held tight. Was this man, once a boy like her, really going to protect her? She felt a flicker of warmth surge through her, pushing back the shadows that danced in the corners of her mind. But just as quickly, doubt crept back in. What could one person do against Gatto, the ruthless gang leader who commanded respect and loyalty? The stories she had heard made her shiver. Gato wasn't he someone to mess with. Yet, Kevin's words seemed to awaken a collective strength. We are not powerless, he declared, his voice riding high on fierce conviction. Together, we can create a safe space for our children to grow up in without fear. We must show Gato and his crew that they can't intimidate us. The crowd erupted, see! See! They chanted, voices growing louder, filling the night air with a newfound bravery. As the momentum built, Kevin spotted a dark figure lurking at the edge of the crowd, a shadow slipping into the night. His heart sank. We must move quickly, he thought. Gato 1T just stand by. With urgency fueling him, Kevin led the crowd towards the center of their park, a spot of forgotten beauty overgrown but still vibrant. The park belonged to them, and it was time to reclaim it. Bring your children, your stories, everything that makes our community whole. He rallied. We're creating a safe haven right here. Glancing back at Julia, he saw her face transform, hope flickered in her eyes as she inched closer to the front. Did she believe? Did anyone? But as they reached the heart of the park, loud engines roared in the distance. Kevin's pulse quickened as he turned and felt his stomach drop. Several motorcycles emerged from the darkness, their headlights piercing the night's haze, the riders clad in leather and menace. Gato was here, sending a chilling reminder that not everyone was ready to surrender control. Kevin stepped forward, momentarily frozen. Tension embraced the air, colder than the Chicago wind. What were they going to do? How could he protect Julia and the community from the very danger he wished to erase? The gang member stepped off his bike, eyes glinting with malice. What's this? He sneered, scanning over the gathering crowd. A little rally. You think these weaklings are gonna stop us? Kevin swallowed hard but didn't back down. This is our neighborhood. You no longer have power here. For a heartbeat, silence fell between them, heavy and thick, as hope battled fear in everyone's hearts. Julia took a breath, her tiny hands shaking at her sides. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, we are fighters. Could she fight too, even if it meant standing beside Kevin against the darkness? But before anyone could respond, Gato's sinister smile deepened. Oh, we'll see about that, he whispered, the threat hanging heavily in the air. A confrontation was brewing. Would they fight back against the looming danger or retreat into the shadows? As the crowd braced itself, the night promised a turning point, one that would decide whether hope would shine or fear would win. What lay ahead now seemed as uncertain as the flickering streetlights above. Then came the moment that could change everything. Kevin's heart raced as he faced Gato. The gang leader's presence crackled like electricity in the air, and every muscle in Kevin's body screamed for him to flee. But he couldn't. Not now. Not when so many were counting on him. What's it gonna be? Gato taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. Kevin could sense the fear rippling through the crowd. They needed to believe he needed them to believe. We stand together. We're more than your fear. Kevin found his voice echoing louder, driven by desperation. Julia, standing close behind him, looked up, her eyes wide and filled with a mix of terror and courage. Let us show him what we can do. She whispered, barely audible, but he heard her. It was enough to light a spark in his chest. He glanced around, catching the gaze of someone in the crowd he hadn't noticed before, an older man with a weathered face, his eyes filled with defiance. Yes. We are not afraid. The man yelled, raising his fist. One by one, others began to join in, fists rising, voices swelling. Gato's amusement vanished. You think this little show is gonna make a difference? He stepped forward, causing several community members to take a step back involuntarily. This is my territory. You're living in a dream if you think you can take it back. Kevin felt panic settling in his gut. They weren't just standing against words but risking all they had. The park, this space that had once been theirs, was now a battleground of uncertainty. But flashes of memories sparkled in his mind, family picnics, laughter, the sounds of children playing. It had to be worth fighting for. They had to show Gato that love and unity could conquer fear. I think you're underestimating what a community can do together. Kevin shouted, stepping forward. We've had enough of your threats. You're not as powerful as you think, Gato. Gato's eyes narrowed. You just signed your death sentence. Before Kevin could respond, the rest of the gang began moving forward, leathers glistening under the park lights as they fanned out, closing in on the crowd. Julia gasped, the cheers that had moments ago filled the night with hope were now strangled by fear. Stay strong. Kevin yelled, but even his own voice sounded uncertain now. He locked eyes with Julia, the weight of her gaze fiercer than ever. She was ready to fight. The reality sank in a unified community was more than just words, it was belief, it was fearlessness, and it was action. As the gang closed in, Kevin began to rally the group, we need to hold our ground. Together. Right here, right now. Yet, as the two sides faced each other, adrenaline surged. Gato raised a hand suddenly, and a smirk played on his lips. Then let us make this interesting. He turned to his crew. Show them what happens when they challenge the throne. The gang erupted in laughter, a dark sound that echoed through the park, chilling the warmth of the moment. Kevin's heart raced. It felt like a movie where the hero finally steps forward, but with terrible stakes. Fight for each other. He shouted, gripping Julia's hand with a fierce determination. The community needed to see their strength, but would their courage hold? Just as the tension thickened, the unexpected happened somewhere behind the gang, headlights flared, cutting through the night. A vehicle sped toward them, tires screeching. Hey! What is going on here? A voice shouted from the car, breaking through the oppressive atmosphere. Kevin's heart pounded in rhythm with the approaching chaos. Who was arriving now? Was it salvation or more trouble? The night held its breath, new allies or enemies drawing near. The crowd shifted nervously, uncertain of what would unfold next. As the headlights illuminated the park, a deep sense of foreboding mingled with the fragile currents of hope. What lay ahead could tilt the balance of power forever. The car screeched to a halt, and the headlights swept across the crowd like a searchlight, illuminating faces filled with apprehension and hope. Kevin squinted through the harsh glare, his body tense as he tried to discern the identity of the figure stepping out of the vehicle. It was a woman tall, with hair pulled back into a tight ponytail and eyes sharp like a hawk's. She wore an expensive-looking jacket, the kind of clothes that spoke of power and confidence. There was a moment of silence as she surveyed the scene, a mix of surprise and anger flaring across her features. What the hell is going on here? The woman demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. The gang members shifted, momentarily distracted from their menacing stance. Gato's expression darkened, the playful arrogance fading away. This is none of your business, lady. You better turn around and get back into your car. I think it is my business if someone's threatening my neighborhood, she shot back, stepping forward with an air of authority that made even Gato hesitate. The residents behind Kevin exchanged looks of confusion and curiosity. For a moment, they forgot their fears, unsure if this stranger was a savior or another player in the dangerous game they found themselves in. Who are you? Kevin called out, his voice breaking the spell of silence. What do you want? My name is Alice Whitmore, she replied, her gaze flicking toward him. And I'm here to clean up this mess. Kevin felt a rush of relief mixed with skepticism. He didn't know whether to trust her, but her presence provided a glimmer of hope in the storm swirling around them. Clean it up how? Julia whispered to Kevin, her grip tightening on his hand. They could already see the gang inching closer again, sensing the opportunity to disrupt this tense moment, but Alice remained undaunted. This community deserves better than to be bullied by thugs like Gato. You all have power together, and that is your biggest weapon. I'll help you tap into it. With that, she turned her attention back to Gato. You've terrorized this park long enough. You think you run this neighborhood, but together, they are stronger than you. Gato laughed, a cruel sound. Is that so? You think a car ride gives you authority here? More than you know, Alice shot back, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a small device. Kevin squinted in the dark, trying to make out what she was holding. It looked like a phone, but before he could understand, she pressed a button. An instant stream of lights flooded the area. Suddenly, distant sirens wailed, growing louder, but not just in the background. As if on cue, a fleet of police cars pulled into the park, flashing lights cutting through the night. The crowd gasped collectively, a wave of disbelief washing over them. Gatto's bravado faltered. This isn't over. He snarled, glancing nervously at the cops pouring out of their vehicles. You'll regret this. Not if you're gone first, Alice shot back, her confidence unshakable. The police began to coordinate, moving towards Gatto and his crew, who now appeared as if the ground had dropped from beneath them. Kevin felt a surge of adrenaline. This is our chance. He yelled, looking around at the community. We can stand together now. But before they could fully rally, Gatto's gang scattered, chaos erupting as the police pursued them. The crowd erupted in cheers, a wave of relief and excitement coursing through the air. Yet, amidst the joy, a question lingered: was this truly the end of Gatto or just the beginning of a new game? As the night began to settle, Kevin turned to Alice, ready to understand her game plan. What do we do next? But before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from the direction the gang fled, and an ominous voice filled the night air. You think you can take us down that easily? The balance had not yet shifted. As the tension hung thick once more, Kevin realized this was just the beginning. The stakes had been raised, and danger loomed nearer than ever. What new threat awaited them, and could they really find the unity needed to stand against it? The air hung heavy, charged with uncertainty. Kevin's heart raced in his chest as he searched the crowd for Alice's face, trying to gauge her reaction. She met his gaze with unyielding resolve, her expression firm and fierce. A crack of thunder rolled in the distance, punctuating the tension that had thickened around them. Everyone, stay behind me, Alice instructed the crowd, her voice steady. Trust me. The cheering subsided, replaced by a collective inhale as residents formed a protective circle around her. Kevin could see the fear in their eyes, but also a budding seed of hope beginning to sprout. Suddenly, the voice returned, echoing from the shadows. You think you can protect them? You don't know what you're dealing with. Gatto stepped forward, reclamation of confidence dripping from his icy stare. You're in way over your head, Alice. Every king has his castle, and you've just invited a war into it. A figure emerged from the dark behind him, a hulking presence that sent a wave of dread through the crowd. A man stood tall, tattoos trailing up his neck like vines, his eyes cold and calculating. Let us show them just how serious we are, he growled, cracking his knuckles with a sound that echoed ominously. Kevin's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about intimidation anymore. This was a declaration of war. He could see the machinations shifting behind Gatto's eyes, plotting his next move with a calmness that froze the air around them, but Alice stood her ground. We're not afraid of you, she retorted, the fire in her spirit lighting the way for the others. A few nearby residents nodded, their grip still tight on one another's arms, finding strength in unity. Is that what you want? The hulking man replied, amusement lacing his tone. A fight? You're outnumbered. Kevin took a small step forward, his voice catching in his throat, as if the very air were charged with electricity. We have each other, he murmured, louder this time, feeling the weight of leadership settle upon him. You will never take from us again. That ignited a spark. Around him, voices lifted in a chorus of solidarity, a chant forming that built and surged like a crashing wave. Together. 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 Gatto wrinkled his nose, irritation flickering in his eyes. You really think that can save you? He spat, a venomous sneer distorting his features. Why don't we put it to the test? Alice challenged, opening her stance, demanding action from the very air around them. Before anyone could react, the hulking figure lunged forward, muscles coiling like a spring. Kevin felt his breath catch, fear gripping his gut. But his instincts kicked in, and he surged to the front, positioning himself to shield Julia. "Get back!" he yelled, adrenaline coursing through his veins, fueled by the call of his community behind him. Just then, a loud bang echoed, a distant shattering of glass signaling the police were moving closer. Yet in that moment of chaos, Kevin understood that this wasn't merely about survival anymore. It was about taking a stand, proving they were truly stronger together. As the chaos of conflict closed in, Kevin felt a rush of determination. This was their moment. But Alice's urgent voice cut through the din. "This fight can't just be physical, we need to outsmart them too." He looked at her, realization dawning on him. Alice was here for more than just a last stand, she had a plan. "Trust me," she insisted, her eyes locking onto his. "We can turn the tables." But as tension crackled under the weight of anticipation, Kevin wondered, was he ready to gamble everything for a community that had been beaten down for so long? Just as uncertainty wrapped around him, a figure broke through the crowd behind Alice. It was a small child, trembling but determined. "Don't hurt them," she cried out, innocence radiating like a beacon amid the dark wall of hostility. A softening took hold. The child's words ignited something in each heart present. Was this fight about safety or something even bigger, a future they could build as one? Kevin's heart raced with clarity. As the gang prepared for a physical showdown, the barriers of fear began to crumble. Sacrificing safety for hope, unity became their weapon. "Let us do this," he whispered, stepping alongside Alice, ready for the next phase of their struggle. And then, a sudden silence fell. What would happen in the next moment? What unexpected twist awaited them as they stood on the edge of transformation? The silence was thick, tangible, wrapping around the community like a heavy fog. Kevin's heart thudded in his chest, every beat amplifying the weight of the moment. He could sense the anxiety radiating from his neighbors, but it was mingled with something else, an unwavering determination forged in the fires of desperation. Gatto's sneer deepened, his eyes narrowing. The hulking man hesitated, awareness flickering as he took in the sight of the tiny girl standing bravely among them. Her small frame looked even more delicate against the backdrop of the brewing storm, yet she was somehow the fiercest presence there. "Get back!" shouted the hulking man again, eyes flashing in rage as he resumed his advance. But before he could take 2 steps, Alice took a single step forward, her hand raised to hold him at bay. "We don't want violence." Her voice sliced through the tension, steady and strong. "But you need to understand, these people are not just walls to break. They're hearts and minds that will fight alongside me." Gatto scoffed, but a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He glanced back at his men, seeking reassurance, but his cohorts were fixated on the small girl, their bravado wavering. Behind her, Kevin felt an unexpected swell of courage. "You want to fight?" he called out, stepping into the space where tension buzzed like electricity. "Then let us fight for our home, our neighbors. We're done being scared." The crowd surged forward slightly, emboldened, as more voices joined Kevin's. "We're not going anywhere," they shouted, and Kevin could feel the energy building like a physical force, rising against the oppressive weight they'd been carrying for far too long. "Enough!" Gatto's voice thundered, commanding silence. "You really think this little show of emotion is going to save you? Look around. You can't win. You're just a bunch of scared people begging to be pushed around." Alice squared her shoulders, her face set. "You think we're scared of you? You don't even know the first thing about us." In a heartbeat, the hulking man launched forward again, this time aiming to break through the human wall with brute force. Time seemed to slow as Kevin's instincts kicked in. Without thinking, he leaped in front of Julia and Alice, but Alice was faster. She moved like water, slipping past Kevin to stand directly in the man's path. "I said stop," she commanded, her voice a fierce crescendo. Inexplicably, he halted, as if something unseen held him in place. The crowd went still, breaths held in anticipation. "What's wrong?" Gatto chided, forcing a brave front, yet the uncertainty in his gaze belied his bravado. You think they can distract us? I think they are here for a reason, Alice replied, her tone calm but powerful. You've been playing at being king. But here's the truth, a real leader fights for their people, not against them. The hulking man shifted uncomfortably, his bravado cracking like a glass facade. The child behind Alice spoke again, her voice small yet resolute. Please don't hurt anyone. The weight of her innocence shattered through the tension like a beautiful note in a chaotic symphony. In that moment, a collective sigh moved through the crowd, their hearts synchronizing in a rhythm of resolve. Even Gatto faltered, uncertain, with a hesitant voice. Kevin echoed what everyone was feeling, what if we came together instead? Show them that we're not just the things you can take. Alice turned, her eyes sparkling with newfound hope. That's it, Kevin. We don't have to fight tooth and nail if we can reach them. There's room for understanding. But what they didn't realize was that Gatto had other plans. His face darkened, and just as Kevin began to take a step forward to bring an offering of unity, Gatto snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the shadowed figures behind him sprang from the darkness, eager and hungry for the chaos they had come to ignite. Now it's time for them to understand what real power looks like. He yelled, and the clash was unavoidable. As Kevin faced the impending chaos, a chilling question gripped him. Would their unity be enough to stand against the violent tide closing in around them? Just then, as fists began to fly, a loud horn blasted from the distance, reverberating across the town like a siren-esque call. The horn blared again, piercing through the pandemonium like a beacon of hope. Everyone momentarily froze, eyes darting towards the direction of the sound. It was a long, deep note that carried an urgency, summoning attention far better than shouted commands. What the hell is that? Gatto shouted, irritation simmering beneath his bravado. The shadowy figures behind him hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks. For a fleeting moment, the chaos surrounding Kevin and his neighbors paused, creating an opening for something unexpected to unfold. Kevin felt the tension in the air shift as the commotion quieted. He turned to Alice and Julia, their faces reflecting disbelief and concern. What is it? He mumbled, desperate for reassurance. They had fought so hard to stand their ground. The reality of their struggle settled heavily on his shoulders, but the trumpet's call offered a glimmer of possibility. As the horn echoed once more, a vehicle emerged from the edge of the crowd, headlights blazing like a lighthouse cutting through a storm. It was an old fire truck, its rusted bell clanging and siren blaring, barreling toward them like a fearsome guardian. Kevin's heart raced. Who would drive into chaos willingly? It's Luke! Shouted someone from the back, and several heads turned in recognition. Luke, the town's once celebrated fire chief, had been the glue of their community before the storms of hardship had struck. The sight of him behind the wheel, eyes fierce and determined, reignited flickers of hope. As he slammed on the brakes, the truck skidded to a halt, and he jumped out, a tall figure of authority against the backdrop of uncertainty. Dust clouded around him like a halo of resilience. In a voice tinged with urgency, he called out, "Everyone! Listen up! This is not the way. We don't have to do this." His loud command cut through the buzz of dismay, reaching into the hearts of the fearful. "Luke, they're about to." Kevin's voice faltered as he watched. But Luke was already moving, rushing to Alice's side. "They don't get to walk over you. Not now. Not ever." Luke seemed to channel the collective determination of the crowd, his presence solidifying their resolve. With a nod from Alice, a wave of collective strength surged through the community. They could stand together, fortified by a voice that called for unity rather than violence. Gatto's men shifted uneasily, their confidence fracturing as Luke's unexpected arrival began to forge a new path. Kevin thrust his fist in the air, the gesture echoing through the crowd, a rallying cry for courage. "Stand up! For our homes! Our families!" Each word resonated like a drum, vibrating within them, urging them to break free from fear, and as they joined in, voices rising as one, Gatto's facade began to crumble. He retreated a step, uncertainty creeping into his expression. "This won't end well for you," he snarled, but even he felt the weight of their defiance. Suddenly, a sharp crack resounded over the chant, a gunshot. Panic surged, the crowd contracting in apprehension. "Down!" Luke yelled, instinctively pulling Alice and Julia close. With that chilling sound echoing in their minds, the atmosphere crackled with tension and dread. They could feel the threat hovering like a storm cloud, ready to unleash chaos once more. "Do we stay together?" Kevin thought, glancing around at the faces of his neighbors. The shared, determined glances echoed louder than any shots that might ring out. But as the dust settled from the shot, another horn sounded, this one almost mechanical and high-pitched. A silhouette emerged from the shadows, marching forward, its approach swift and assertive. Kevin's heart raced. Was it another threat? Or a potential ally? Amid swirling fears and uncertainty, one question lingered in his mind: who was drawing nearer, and what would they bring with them? The figure stepped into the light, revealing a narrow frame clad in tactical gear. Kevin squinted, heart hammering, as details sharpened into focus. Short hair glinted silver under the dim streetlights, but it was the badge on the figure's chest that struck him with a mix of hope and disbelief. It was Officer Diane, the town's police chief. Where did she come from? Someone murmured in the crowd, a blend of shock and relief washing over the masses. The brave presence of the law had always been a comforting force, a shield against chaos. "Stay behind me, everyone!" Diane barked, her voice slicing through the tension. "We're not here to fight. We're here to protect." Her eyes scanned the crowd, locking in on the frightened faces, then shifting toward the ominous group of Gatto and his men, who shifted uneasily under her gaze. Gatto sneered. "And what do you think you're going to do, Diane? You think your badge is going to scare us?" He clutched something metallic at his side, and Kevin felt the crowd's anxiety spike. "We have the numbers!" shouted one of the neighbors, emboldened by Diane's arrival. "We can take them." Others echoed the sentiment, calling for unity. Kevin felt a swell of strength but heard that familiar whisper of doubt creep in. Was this really going to lead to violence? Diane, sensing the rising tension, took a step closer to the crowd. "Listen, I understand your anger." Her voice softened. "But fighting isn't the answer. We need to stand up, but not like this." Her words resonated, as she continued, "This is about more than just tonight, it's about our community and what we want it to be." The crowd shifted, uncertainty flickering across their faces as hope still danced in their hearts. Luke turned to Kevin, breathing heavily. "It's a good start, right? But what now?" Amidst the fray, Kevin stepped forward, drawing strength from the example of both Luke and Diane. We're not going to let anyone take this from us." His voice, steadier now, broke through the unease. "We're not just neighbors, we're family." The word struck a chord, a ripple of determination sweeping through the crowd. One by one, they began to step forward, joining him. Kevin was surprised by the number of familiar faces, those who might have shied away just moments before, now daring to stand tall. "Let us talk," Kevin shouted, trying to reach Gatto before the situation escalated. "Let us find a different way. We can settle this without more violence." But Gatto's expression morphed into something darker. He raised his weapon, the barrel shining menacingly in the uncertain light. "You want to talk? I'd prefer to end this here. The weak don't get a say." The crowd gasped collectively, fear bubbling up again, yet the conviction in Kevin's voice remained unshaken. "We won't back down. We have too much to lose." Diane stepped beside Kevin, standing tall next to him. "Enough, Gatto. The law still matters here. You can't hold on to fear forever." A tense silence fell, broken only by the soft whirring sound returning, filling the air. Everyone turned their eyes again to the darkness, where the faint outline of a second vehicle began to take shape. Kevin's heart raced uncontrollably. What now? He thought. A fresh wave of anticipation, mingled with uncertainty, washed over him. Who else was coming to their aid? And would they arrive in time to avert disaster? The crowd shifted nervously, anticipation hanging thick in the air like fog. The rumble of the engine grew louder, echoing off the buildings, almost drowning out Kevin's racing thoughts. Who could it be? He wanted so desperately to believe it was someone who would help them, someone who had the means to stand up against Gatto and his men. Diana's fierce gaze remained fixed on Gatto, every ounce of her presence demanding respect. "This isn't just about you anymore," she said, steadying her voice. "We're not backing down. We will protect our town." Gatto laughed, a harsh, grating sound that made a cold wave rush through Kevin. "You think these townsfolk can protect anything? They're scared. Look at them." He waved a hand dismissively toward the crowd, who flinched at his tone. "This is a joke." Kevin clenched his fists, teeth grinding. "You don't know them at all." Kevin Luke warned softly, placing a hand on his shoulder, but the moment was lost as the vehicle rolled closer, its headlights cutting through the darkness and illuminating the scene. The crowd pressed forward, curiosity and dread pulling them together. Suddenly, a door swung open, and a tall figure stepped out, silhouetted against the bright glare. As the person moved forward, Kevin squinted, recognizing the walk, the confidence. It was Sarah, a local business owner and a voice of reason in their community, who had made a name for herself by helping those in need. "Sarah!" he called out, relief flooding through him. She was reliable, a beacon of hope, and surely she would know what to do. "Everyone!" Sarah shouted, her voice ringing clear and strong, cutting through the tension. "We cannot let fear dictate our actions. We've faced challenges before, and together, we are stronger." The crowd's murmurs began to shift, a revival of unity surging as hope began to spread like wildfire. They lifted their heads, determination igniting in their hearts. "Exactly," Diane added, their energies combining like a powerful wave. "Stay together. We are not alone in this fight." Gatto squinted at the new arrivals, his bravado faltering slightly as he scanned the faces in the crowd. It was clear they had rallied together, their fear had transformed into something stronger. "You think this little parade is going to scare me?" He laughed again, though the sound faltered, the edge of uncertainty now creeping in. Sarah stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Diane and Kevin. "No, Gatto. We're here to tell you that this ends tonight. We're not going to cower anymore." The crowd began to chant, voices rising in unison, filling the air with a newfound courage. "Not afraid. Not afraid." It was an anthem of defiance, pushing back against the shadows that threatened to consume them. Gatto's face twisted with rage. "You think your voices can make a difference? I'll show you how this works. You'll regret this." But before he could make another move, a sharp sound pierced the air, a gunshot, echoing ominously just beyond the crowd. The noise shattered the moment, sending everyone reeling. "Get down!" Diane barked, her instincts kicking in as she dove toward the crowd. Panic erupted, and people scattered, frantically trying to find cover. Kevin's heart raced, fear mingling with chaos as he looked around for Luke and Sarah. The world around him blurred, the familiar faces morphing into strangers, confusion overtaking his senses. Where had that shot come from? Was someone else here, ready to join the fray? And as lights flashed ominously in the darkness, Kevin fought to remain grounded, desperately searching for the strength he hoped would get them through this perilous moment. Was this the beginning of their true fight, or the unraveling of everything they had built? What else could go wrong? Silence fell like a heavy blanket after that gunshot, freezing the crowd mid-motion, hearts pounding in unity. Kevin clutched Julia's hand tightly, instinctively shielding her from the chaos unfolding around them. But as fear flashed through the crowd, something else ignited within him, a fire that couldn't be extinguished. He could feel their collective heartbeats, thrumming with confusion and hope. Diane quickly began calling out instructions, her voice commanding yet calm. "Everyone! Stay low. Find shelter. The crowd instinctively moved closer together, forming a protective circle while they stared wide-eyed at Gatto and his gang. As Gatto's men began to stir again, readying themselves to charge, Kevin knew this was it. This was the moment that would define their community. He couldn't let fear dictate their future. No. He yelled, his voice cutting through the tumult. We won't back down. We're not just a crowd, we're a family. His words seemed to ripple through the people around him, igniting a spark. Together. Echoed one voice after another, and in that instant, they transformed from a group of frightened individuals into a unified force standing tall against adversity. Alice stepped forward, seizing the momentum. If they want a fight, let us show them who we are. She shouted, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Gatto faltered for a moment, surprise flickering across his face. He hadn't expected the community to rally like this. But a sneer quickly replaced it. You really think you can take me down? You're a joke. He spat, waving his gang onward, but it was too late. The cracks of unity had begun to splinter his confidence. Suddenly, the sirens that had echoed in the distance grew louder, until they were right upon them, a spotlight of flashing light illuminating the confusion. And then, from the shadows emerged Officer Diane, flanked by a fleet of officers. We are here to ensure the safety of this community. She bellowed, her steady voice reigniting the embers of bravery. Seeing the police, Kevin felt a wave of relief wash over him, filling the gap fear had carved in his heart. But it was more than just law enforcement. It was about their collective strength. The community continued their chant, fueled by adrenaline, not afraid. Not afraid. Gatto, trapped in the blinding lights, hesitated, uncertainty flooding his expression. His gang wavered, glancing at one another, caught between loyalty and fear. This isn't over. Gatto screeched, but he was losing grip. Then let us make it over. Shouted Luke, stepping forward with resolve. This is our town, and we won't let you destroy it any longer. As unexpected momentum surged, Kevin couldn't help but feel it, hope blossoming like flowers through cracks in cement. They were reclaiming their home. This feeling power combined with love was more potent than any gun or threat Gatto could wield. The police began to direct the crowd, creating a barrier between the community and the gang. With newfound courage, they pushed forward, inching closer to the gang members who once instilled fear in their hearts. The power rested with them now. Leave now, and maybe we'll let you walk out of here in one piece, Diane warned, her voice shaking just enough to show she was human and fierce, embodying the amalgam of courage within everyone present. With a defiant glare, Gatto found himself cornered by not only the law, but a unified front of neighbors once too scared to stand tall. We've seen enough, Alice retorted. We are no longer your prey. We will not be silenced or bullied again. Not today. Kevin seized the moment. We fight for our kids, our families, for Julia and everyone here who dreams of a better tomorrow. One by one, the crowd began to step forward, dismantling the wall of fear that had kept them shackled for so long. Gatto's bravado splintered further as he faced a wave of unity that instilled fear in him for the first time. You've got it all wrong, a voice cut through the air. Gatto spun around to find a girl from the crowd, a teen who had grown up with the same shadows lurking in her neighborhood. We've spent years trying to make a life here while you took everything from us. You're not in control anymore. Panic fluttered through Gatto's eyes, and with that, his dark world began to spiral. The community no longer feared retribution. They stood together, a living shield against everything he represented. Let us finish this, he hissed, glancing at his scattered gang. But his voice lacked conviction. The collective strength of the community had shaken him to his core. No more fighting. We want a dialogue. Kevin's voice rang strong, unyielding. It's time to rebuild, not destroy. At last, Gatto's facade crumbled like a house of cards, and with a final reluctant glare, he nodded sharply to his crew. They stepped back, veins filled with uncertainty, leaving Gatto alone in the face of community rebirth. Cheers erupted from the crowd, a symphony of hope rising into the night sky. The fear that had nested in their hearts began to dissipate, replaced by love for each other. Kevin turned to Julia, his heart swelling as her radiant smile lit up the darkness. She was safe, they were all safe. Diane stepped up next to Kevin and Alice. This is only the beginning. It's time to heal our community, but we'll do it together, she declared, ensuring that the promise of protection echoed in every heart present. Kevin looked out at the faces around him, shimmering with resilience and newfound hope. After years of walking through fear, they were taking steps toward a brighter tomorrow, and as they began to embrace, lights flickering brightly around them, Kevin knew this was just a moment of victory. It was the dawn of an enduring change. Tonight, they reclaimed their story, and now, it's more important than ever that you don't miss what comes next. You need to subscribe now to the channel, be part of our growing family, leave a like right now to fuel our journey and help spread our message, comment your thoughts and feelings about this electrifying ending, your voice matters, share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support while we keep rewriting the narrative together. Don't wait not even one more second.